Microbehunter here. What a crazy time we're living in right now. Maybe you are as well under lockdown. And what I decided to do today is I just wanted to show you maybe my microscopes that I have and maybe the lab where I'm at, my home lab, so to say. And I simply want to show you how I'm actually recording the videos, not only for this channel here, but many of you already know that I have a main channel as well about microscopes. And in this main channel, I simply share with you my observations that I have made using the microscope. Well, this channel that you're watching right now is more a little bit a conversational maybe and technical in nature and so on. Yeah, so I can take the liberty here a little bit to be a little bit more flexible in the content. That was also one of the reasons, but I would like to ask you kindly, could you please subscribe to both channels? Would be really nice. That also makes it easier for other people then to find these channels. Well, yeah, let's get started. I want to show you a couple of my microscopes and also my work environment here. And we're going to start off with this one over here. This here is an Olympus CH40 microscope. I bought it back in the year 1998. I just finished my university studies of microbiology, and then as a present to myself, yeah, I decided I want to get a microscope, and a really good one that's I'm gonna have for a very long time. And yes, I bought this one, and it really did burn a hole into my wallet. It's still expensive if you want to buy these days in a used version, but at that time, if you convert it with inflation and all of these things, I actually went online to do a conversion. I would have paid over 5,000 euros. One would pay for this microscope right now. I think it's a financial overkill. If I were to start microscopy, I would buy myself a good microscope, sure, but not one that's that expensive. You can get pretty much very similar or almost identical image quality these days with microscopes that cost around 300 to 400 euros or dollars. Yeah, but at that time, over 20 years ago, these low-cost good microscopes were not yet available, and I had to resort to these here. However, there's one thing that this microscope is able to do that even many good microscopes these days don't have. I have a revolving nose piece here, and I have 5 objectives. So the objectives that I have is a 4 times magnifying objective. Let me lower the stage here a little bit. 4 times, 10 times. Most microscopes have that. And here I have got a 20 times magnification as well. And this is a really convenient magnification because water organisms, I like to look through them using the 20 times, because often 10 times is not enough, and 40 times like I have here is already a little bit too much. And the water organisms, they kind of immediately get move out of the field of view, so it's kind of difficult to chase them under the microscope. So for that reason, I think that the 20 times objective is really good. And then 40 times, I already said that, and then here the highest one that I have is a 60 times magnifying objective. I do also have a 100 times oil immersion objective, but I removed that and I bought this one here. The reason is because oil immersion is kind of tricky to use, and for the things that I look at, I don't need that high magnification. So 60x, this one is pretty good. I bought this second hand over eBay. It is from the same series. That's kind of important. While the standard is a 160 millimeter DIN standard, so theoretically I could also attach other objectives here, which are not that expensive. I still bought the original Olympus objective here for the reason that if they're from the same series, then I do not have to refocus when I change objectives. Okay, so one of the problems when you mix objectives together is that they might fit. They're the same standard in many cases, 160 millimeters, but they might not be parfocal. And this parfocality means is that you do not have to refocus when you change the objective. And that's kind of important, especially for the high magnification ones, because if they're not parfocal, it could be that if you try to rotate then the objective into position, and if it's not parfocal, that you might end up maybe crashing the objective into the slide, and it's not as convenient. So I decided to get the original one, and after I looked around on eBay a little bit, I did actually find one. It was not cheap either, I have to admit. It was actually, it wasn't, I don't remember how much I paid for it, but I think it was around 200 euros just for the objective. I mean, for that price, you already can get a microscope. Okay, so yeah, that is basically the revolving nose piece that I have here, and here at the top I'm just gonna move the camera system up here. Okay, so this is basically the camera system that I'm using. I've got a Canon camera, and this adapter system that you see here, this is also the original adapter system from Olympus, yeah, and made for single lens reflex cameras. And in here, what I have in here is the following. I have to unmount this here. Gotta be careful here because with one hand I'm holding my camera, with the other one I gotta take this off here. Okay, it's still a little bit more. Okay, here we go. Okay, and what you see here is this is a so-called a projection eyepiece or projection ocular. And what this means is that this eyepiece here, or this ocular, makes an image on the camera sensor. And it's important that you use the original one here because it compensates certain lens errors from the objective. So this basically reduces all of the aberrations. There is, however, one disadvantage. Let me put the camera down again here. There is, however, one disadvantage with this, and that is that this one is made assuming that the camera sensor has a full 36 millimeter, like in the old film cameras. Yeah, so, but the modern camera sensors are actually much smaller than that, unless you have a so-called a full frame single lens reflex camera. And this means that with this eyepiece here, I'm getting actually a slightly higher magnification than and a lower field, field of view than you would normally get. Now, I did look around for eyepieces, projection eyepieces that are also for smaller camera sensors and for the so-called the APS size sensors. And they are so expensive and so difficult to get that it's really not worth it. So for the smaller sensor, you would have to pay around 600 euros just for this eyepiece because they're very rare and extremely expensive. So I said, forget about it. I'm just gonna work with this one. And as you can see from my videos, my YouTube videos that I'm making, let me put this back again. Yeah, it's just fine, and it also works. But that is kind of the system that I'm using. Is there any disadvantage? Oh, it's pretty dusty. I'm just seeing here. Dust is a big enemy here. Okay, of any microscope. Is there any disadvantage of this microscope here? Well, high price, of course, but otherwise I'm totally satisfied. There is, the disadvantage a little bit is that the company Olympus actually moved now to so-called infinity optics already many years ago. So I actually wanted to buy some spare parts. Like, for example, I actually called up the company to ask them if they could sell me a 60 times magnifying objective, and the guy on the phone said, wow, we don't have them for many years now. They don't even have any of those in stock anymore because they completely changed the system around to infinity, and that means they're not compatible anymore. So you have to go shopping. Basically, you have to go shopping on eBay. So my recommendation is if you choose to buy a microscope that is that expensive from a company, then make sure that you get all of the parts right away. Otherwise, I'm super happy with it. And I'm going to show you now some other things here. My other microscope, it's a stereo microscope that I bought myself recently. So that is let's put these are the slides and that's my stuff here in the back. So that's the new microscope, so to say, that I bought. Okay, and yeah, that's how it looks like. And here I also have an adapter. Okay, and it's kind of interesting. I found that this system here actually works better than some other systems. It's kind of interesting. So I also have a compensating eyepiece in here, exactly pretty much the same one as over there. And that's the stereo microscope that I'm using. And I already made videos on this and an unpacking video as well. I'm just going to show this to you here because this is also something that I bought here, because that here is a so-called a ring light. Which I had to buy separately. It looks like LEDs, okay, lamp. And one of the things, let me refocus this here. Yeah, now here we go. You see this part here? This did not come along with a microscope. I had to buy this separately. This is an adapter here, so that I'm actually able to mount the ring light, okay. And this ring light is really, really nice, honestly. Not that it's able to do any miracles, but it's really nice because I'm getting the light from all sides. And previously, what I've done previously is simply used some kind of a desk lamp. Just going to show this to you now here as well. Here it is. I used a desk lamp like this, and these desk lamps, they kind of only, of course, shine in the light from one side, and you have a shadow. Not a problem really, but I consider these much more convenient here. Is there a problem with this microscope, or is there anything that I don't like with this microscope? Yes, there is, as a matter of fact. A few small things. For the price, it's pretty good, okay? I consider this part here a little bit flimsy, okay? This is the lever that is able to redirect the light. Instead of this eyepiece, it redirects it using a mirror system up the photo tube. Okay, so I can switch this back and forth, and I think it's the left one here that is redirected. And another thing I don't quite like is that the image quality at very high magnifications is not very good. Not necessarily the fault of the microscope, but at very high magnifications the light intensity is so low that the camera has to go up with the sensitivity, and this introduces quite a bit of noise. So this means that it's not so much of a microscope problem, I would say, but maybe more one of the general nature of microscopes. The higher you magnify, the less light is available, and because those stereo microscopes, they use reflecting light and not direct light from a light source beneath it, like here. Okay, I mean that's a lot of light intensity that you have here. But stereo microscopes use reflected light for this reason. Simply the light intensity is lower, and then the camera has to go up with the sensitivity, and this kind of introduces noise and so on. So that is a little bit of an issue that I've experienced. Otherwise, one of the things that I like is that there is this zoom functionality here. Okay, so I have a continuous zoom. However, when you re-zoom, then you also have to refocus. Okay, because you do lose the focus a little bit. That's okay. That's okay. I don't really mind that. You might also notice that unlike many other stereo microscopes, this one does not have a lamp at the bottom, and I have problems getting this out here. Okay. Oh, that's not something you should do. Okay, but this disc here can be flipped around, so this changes the background color a little bit, and yeah. So that's something that maybe they could have thought of, that kind of maybe make a little indentation here so it's easier to take out. But that's okay. Yeah, and a couple of final words about the stereo microscope here. It's Amscope, and however, there are many other companies that sell the same microscope and they're rebranding it. But the reason why I got this model specifically is because I like the large base to put things on. I did not need a lamp. Okay, and this was actually the only combination that I was able to get, and it was quite reasonably low cost. So that's why I chose this one. But this is actually, there are many of these microscopes around, sold under different brand names. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to show you now a couple of other things here. So what else do I have on my desk? So what do I have here? I use this camera for normally for filming myself. I'm now using a handheld mobile phone. But normally I use this camera here. This is my regular trash can. I have a whole bunch of microphones and mobile phone stands and so on that I've been experimenting around with. Here I keep my microscopy things, of course, some slides, cover glasses, some glass jars. I collect used microscope slides in this container here. I might want to clean them and wash them and reuse those that I can reuse. And in this box I keep some tools. Okay, it's a little bit out of focus. Now it's in focus again. Yeah, why do I need these cork things here? Yeah, for making microtome cuts, for example. Yeah, and so on. Yeah, so that is basically the stuff that I have on my desk, which you do not see because it's behind the camera that I use here. Yeah, next to my desk I have a 3D printer. Some of you might have already seen that I've 3D printed some microscope parts as well. And again, next to it, this is where I keep various stains, chemicals and so on. A couple of empty jars to collect water samples. alcohol for cleaning things a little bit. Yeah, this is regular ink that I also sometimes use for staining. I've got some citric acid here in case I want to make some crystals to be observed. Clear nail polish sometimes, and I've got some mounting medium here as well. Yeah, otherwise nothing really exciting. Here I keep some other odd things. Yeah, some cover glasses. Here let me focus again. Yeah, when I make a permanent slide, what I do is I have to store them horizontally until the mounting medium has solidified. So I usually keep them here locked away in my cupboard because this also kind of reduces the possibility for dust to settle. Yeah, what do I have in here? Yeah, also some adapters that I bought and things like this. And let me see. Yeah. Yeah, I've been experimenting around with different adapters and so on. Yeah, next shelf here is this is where I keep my permanent slides. I have a whole bunch of permanent slides, commercial ones and also homemade ones. And down here I've got again a whole bunch of microscopes. Let me focus again a little bit. Yeah, this is a low-cost introductory microscope. Yeah, I've also made some review videos on this. This here is my phase contrast microscope. The microscope itself was essentially second-hand, and it was completely not usable at all because the focus knobs were not able to be turned anymore because the oil, the lubrication oil, completely solidified. And it was not usable, so I actually sent it to a certified Olympus maintenance, and they essentially fixed the whole microscope for me. Now it's as good as new. However, yeah, I paid 200 euros just for getting it cleaned and fixed. I bought myself here a phase contrast condenser. This is over eBay, and I bought myself also some phase contrast objectives. Yeah, so every time when I want to use phase contrast, I just get this microscope out here. And this over here is also a stereo microscope with a 4 times and 2 times objective multiplied by 10, so 20 and 40 times magnification. Yeah, and the reason why I'm not using this one anymore is because there was no easy way to connect the camera to it. So in order to connect the camera, I needed some kind of a camera adapter that I have here. Which is also quite fine, but I'm not using this anymore. And here I've my experimental Lego microscope. I've also made videos on this, 10 times objective here, and not objective, eyepiece. And down here, I disconnected it, but down here there was the objective, 10 times objective, and this was the stage. Yeah, and down here I put a little... No, I did forget something here down here. What do I have here? I've got a slide ringing table here. I've also made a video on this already. And some microtomes. For example, this here is a small microtome, okay? Yeah, and yeah, some other stuff. This here is a small field box that I sometimes use. I've got here a homemade duster. So what I can do is I can use a bicycle pump to pump it up, and then I can press this here, and then I get high pressure air to remove a dust. Also made a video on this. Oh, now I dropped it. What else do I have here? Some very old. Don't do this, okay? I just have it because I gotta keep them, and I inherited. So. Butterflies, okay? No, you shouldn't do that, okay? But they're quite old. They're already, I don't know, 35 or 40 years old, and I simply took them over from someone. And yeah, they are basically one of my specimens that I have to put under my stereo microscope. And yeah, what else do I have? Not a lot. And here there is another microtome in here. Okay, so you see I've been experimenting around quite a bit the past couple of years. Well, thinking about it, I might actually do a video where I put these butterflies under the stereo microscope. Actually, it's a good thing that I rediscovered them right now. Yeah, and behind on the wall, I've got a whole bunch of LED lamps, yeah, to make sure that everything is nice and bright. And yeah, before I forget about this camera here has a so-called flip-out screen, and this is really convenient. You can even see my reflection in here now. This is really convenient because it allows me actually to see what I am able to film when I'm sitting down. So I don't have to look in at the top, but I can actually see it on screen. That's very convenient. So I highly recommend cameras with a flip-out screen if you want to also connect them to a microscope. Next to it on the windowsill, I've got a whole bunch of samples, water samples. Yeah, that's a small orange seed that I got to germinate, and some cacti, and then of course some water samples. That's you probably already know this one here from my other YouTube channel. I'm growing some paramecia in here, and a decaying piece of wood with a whole bunch of microscopic nematode worms. I also made a video on this, and this is the water sample that's been standing here now for, I don't know, many months. And I'm simply checking now how the progression of the life inside this water sample, because different organisms die and others start to take over. Yeah, so that's basically on the windowsill. Yeah, and I have a green screen. That's this one here, and this green screen I put up here every now and then. If I wanted to make a video that where you can actually see me talk in the corner. I've made a few videos of this already before. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna call it quits for today. Hope it was interesting for you. Again, that's one of the things now that so many countries are locked down and people are not allowed to leave. Microscopy might indeed be a very good hobby, because you can actually do it inside, and keeps you busy, keeps me busy at least. Happy microbe hunting as always. Do leave your comments behind. Consider subscribing to the channel if you liked it. And see you around next time. Bye-bye.